Today is March the 5th, 2022, and I think this is the first entry in this year, first entry on this device, this Philips device, in 2022. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And it's not quite, but almost 2 years since we had our lockdown. March the 15th, 2020. And that was when, can you hear me? I guess you can hear me, yeah. That was when we had the lockdown in the Connemara, and we spent a wonderful spring in the garden. March 2020. Which was a beautiful month, and I was playing around with my trail cam, walking Tuco backward and forward to the trees at the river because there was nothing planted, and I was playing Transport Fever 2 quite a bit, and Anno, which has had a wonderful revival with my new laptop. Just a completely different experience playing it. I'm just walking past the olive grove here. Got a Volkswagen car parked. Yeah. John? A little Volkswagen van with a table inside. It's like my one I rented out, but it looks even smaller. If I had lots of money, I'd buy one of those. I really would. It's a sense of independence. If the shit hit the fan, you could always get away in one of those. So COVID is starting to disappear from the consciousness a little bit now, only to be replaced by fears of World War III. So that's nice. That's good. Ukraine and Russia. Headlines on the newspapers now about fears of some kind of nuclear explosion at the nuclear plants that have been taken over by the Russians in Ukraine. And I have to say, I wasn't as fearful with checking the newspapers when the COVID virus was in its zenith as I am now with this Russian story. I'm genuinely apprehensive in the morning to check the headlines, because it's one of those things that seriously anything could happen. It could go any which way, and it's affecting, very affecting, the thoughts that the Russians are able to just come in and take over not just any old country, but a country like Ukraine, which I've learned very recently is like the second biggest country in the whole, the biggest country in Europe, and I mean the only bigger country is Russia, and it has a whole wealth of minerals and resources that the Russians are just going to claim for themselves now. It's just terrible, really. It also borders about 6 different European countries, which is going to make for interesting times ahead if there are any kind of incursions on any other independent soil. If the Russians decide to think like, well, this little strip of Moldavia or Latvia or Hungary or whatever, we'd like to have Hungary back now as well, which is part of NATO, I think. it's really bleak, the whole thing, and unbelievable really. You wouldn't have, it's like the COVID, you just wouldn't have thought that the Russians, Putin would have done something that's kind of caused so much trouble for everybody, and it's going to be just a nightmare to sort out, or to get back to any kind of stability in terms of politics. Because like I said, even if he wins in a week and takes over the whole country and installs his own government, it's just going to leave a mountain of problems, politically and defensively, military, economically. So there's this kind of undeniable sense that this is just the beginning of something, and in no way is it what Putin might say, the kind of just the beginning of a solution for the Russian nationals in Ukraine. It's really the beginning of trouble. And it's bizarre to start thinking about nuclear weapons. That's not something that has been on my consciousness since way back in the early 80s. There was a spell, I guess there was still high anxieties between the Russians and the Americans, and it was in the consciousness back then. And you had a couple of movies that came out, The Last Day and a British, I think, made for television thing called Threads, which explored what would happen if there was a nuclear launch. Very, very depressing television viewing. But that was way back in the 40 years ago. And over the time, the whole kind of nuclear question is kind of disappeared from my consciousness anyway. Except when North Korea comes up, or you know, maybe disputes between India and Pakistan. But I really thought it was kind of gone from the Russian, American, NATO question. I just didn't think we'd be hearing that again. You know, the thoughts of launch and the thoughts of seeing that big flash in the sky and the news saying Nice has just been leveled. And there's 1 million tons of radiation floating around in the air. It's crazy. Like I say, it scares me a lot more than the COVID virus did, that's for sure. And in terms of the crypto, oh God, well, on the previous tapes, previous audio that I've made, and I'd say something like, well, Bitcoin has dropped to 50 or 55, or ADA, well, it went to 250 and now it's dropped back to 2 euros, and hopefully when I'm listening back that'll be a very low, and you know, you'll be laughing at how low ADA used to be at 2 euros. Well, the whole thing just kind of dropped through the floor over the last actually over the last half a year or more. It's just been a continual slow dropping of everything. So something will go up and then it'll drop a little bit more, and then it'll go up a little bit less, and then it'll drop a little bit more, and it's been like that continually. And a few days ago ADA got up to 49.50 and I was celebrating, and I never thought I'd be celebrating Bitcoin getting to 50 so hard, but I was, because it was like the first time it had showed any kind of strength in months, and then it completely dropped. Now it's 39, I think. And ADA, well, again, never thought we'd see ADA go below $1. I mean, genuinely, a few months ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said, nah, it's probably impossible. Well, It's at about 80 cents, 88 cents at the moment. It's pretty dire, really. If I look into Coinbase and I check up on something like the Engine coin or Solana, and I check when I bought the thing and it's like, oh, you spent €100 back half a year ago. €1,000. You bought €1,000 worth of Solana or Engine, and I check now that 1,000 is now worth about 400. Or in some cases even less, 300. Everything is just gone. So that's the state of the crypto. Is it ever going to come back? I don't know. I genuinely, and I try hard, but I'm learning not to check anymore. I have a temptation, although I want to remember how to, like Flo keeps reminding me, I've got to remember how these things work, so that if I want to transfer the money out and close accounts, I've got to remember where everything is, because it is spread around a little bit. But it's so depressing that I would like to just kind of get back to the way I dealt with my money when it was going into MAF every month, where you don't think about it at all. You just act like you don't have any money in MAF. You act like you don't really have any savings, and you never have any interest in them, and that's true. There isn't any interest in savings anymore. But yeah, I wish I could just disassociate myself from the whole thing completely. And the way things are going politically, who knows? I wouldn't say it to Flo because I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I'm aware myself there is a chance that I will never, or we will never, really see a penny of this money again. It may all disappear completely. The accounts that I'm using, some of the companies, Coinbase, or especially the one that I bought for the gaming, I can't remember the name of the company, they may just disappear completely. I may go one day and say, I'd like to get back the money I've put into this place, and it may be like that doesn't exist anymore. That's there in my mind to kind of say, forget about your 58,000, whatever you've invested, you may never see it again. And the only thing to do with it all is to forget about it for at least 5 years. I almost wish you could go asleep for 5 years. I know that'd be terrible, wishing your life away. But you'd like to think that in 5 years all this stuff will have passed, and Putin will be gone, and there'll be a reinstatement of peace on the planet, and some more level-headed leaders will be able to rise to the occasion, and things will have picked up, and slowly but surely over the years the whole cryptocurrency systems will have all gained something, and at least one or two of them will have gone quite big, and me and Flo will make certain profits, and maybe then we'll consider just getting the hell out of it all completely. I don't know the future. Things seemed quite depressing 2 years ago, and they seem depressing again. 5th of March 2022. Flo is away with her brothers and sisters. It's the meeting of brothers and sisters, and I believe it's the first time in, I guess maybe 20 years, that Alex is not there, because he's decided not to go. He needs time on his own, whatever the story is. So it's just the 6 of them. I am kind of tentatively thinking about having a trip back to Ireland in April, the middle of April. That's another thing. You think I'd have it in me to have some looking forwardness to this trip back, and I don't at all, and I guess it's just the lacking in me as much as anything else. I know I'm not going to go on about the phone call or anything else, but I have no looking for, I don't know what the word is, by the way. I'm sure there's a better word than looking forwardness. I don't even think that exists. Anticipation, I've got not just kind of, anticipation is one of anxiousness for the flight, getting there, will I get the bus, not looking forward to it at all. It's dreadful. I'll see Martina, how will that be? I wasn't really around, I wasn't there for her, I never spoke to her during the whole tragedy with her husband. How will my mother be? She'll be glad to see me. Is she in a constant state of anxiety now about me, about perhaps thinking my life is not great and I'm going to end up back on her doorstep? Just a sense of losing touch completely, people. Maybe when I get back there, things will just kind of snap into the way they always were, and it'll turn out to be a revelation. But I guess it says a lot about me. I'm not in the best. I don't know if I say this all the time and have been saying the same thing for the last 30 years or more. I'm almost looking forward to getting into my mid-60s, because I have a belief in this myth that things can change psychologically for a person as he gets older. There were some studies done on it. Things get lighter inside a person. But right now for me, it's, I kind of thank God for Anno and chess. My life is Anno and chess. That's really all I do. It's all I think about. And I walk to the Connemara religiously. And I have the streets of San Francisco, the whole season, the whole shebang of the streets of San Francisco to watch, for a little bit more escapism. But I do feel bad with my relationship with my family. I should be looking forward to going back. Somehow I'm not. And things with Flo are, well, the same. There's this kind of sense of being a disappointment to Flo. The dreadful sense of being a total failure in terms of the French, the language, and as Flo said the other day, I've seemed to have lost confidence over the last few years, and even lost whatever small ability I had with the language seems to have drained away as well. And it's true. When I was in London with Sean here, when I was in London on my own, I was living in a wonderful state of blissful ignorance of my self. Maybe it would have all had to come to me at some point if I'd stayed there. But I was living in a kind of bubble, and I believed I was somewhat greater than I obviously was. I mean, compared to lots, I'm lucky. And maybe if I spoke to a lot of guys, they'd say, well, join the club. This is kind of what life is like as you grow up. And perhaps the more faculty you have, the more aware you are of things. But still, you know, a guy can be, you can be optimistic. It's really, it should be up to the individual. I'm full of fear. Like Flo said. So that I can't buy that second-hand Volkswagen thing for a few thousand quid and just drive off into the sunset. I can't even plan a week off somewhere because I wouldn't really enjoy it. There isn't really anything that I'm looking forward to. It is just one day at a time. Getting by. Hoping that when I go to bed I'm tired enough to sleep well. And then doing things like I'm doing now to pass the time, pass the day. And I build up some kind of an appetite. When I get to the Connemara, I have something, some egg and bacon and toast like a breakfast, and then I go back and I set the evening aside for doing the usual stuff. I know, chess. Hopefully we'll have an appetite in the evening to eat something. And then I'll go till maybe 3 in the morning. And the day's gone. Something in me at the moment does kind of say to myself, you know, there is always hope that somewhere in the magic in yourself and outside yourself and the way things work, that something will conspire to give you something to look forward to, that something will come together that will get you pumped, get your adrenaline going, get you excited to think about the future. Something that will happen, you know. We don't know, but it's got to the point, by the way, which this is probably maybe one of the advantages of this state of mind, that the reservations about selling the Connemara and the fears are really starting to be overtaken by just the need for something different. The fears of money, lack of it, has been overtaken by being in a different situation somehow. I mean, not completely. a sense that, well, that's the way things happen sometimes. You have a change, and from that change it's like something new comes forward. And you find yourself doing something that you like, and maybe you're earning money. And you say, wow, if I'd tried to foresee this, I never would have. If I could look from my past to what I'm doing now, I would know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Perhaps something of course, to be realistic, it may also be the case that something terrible might happen to you, or someone you hold dearly, and that may be the catalyst to changing something or other. Hope that's not the case. This lack of interest in the things that other people seem to be interested in. I mean, I'm interested in a very set amount of things. I'm interested in Anno. God knows it's really captured me like nothing since SimCity. I can turn it on and just stare at things and feel removed from my reality. Anyway, I'm gonna do 3 more minutes, 30, then I'm gonna stop. This is like a suicidal fucking note. I sometimes wonder if it's not just... Can you imagine if my state of mind is just because there's a dreadful lack of some chemical being produced in me, completely underperforming of something, and an overproduction of something else, and these things are so complicated. I wouldn't like to be a guinea pig with the doctors just prescribing all kinds of crap to see if they could, because you know, it just completely, you could knock the balance haywire with the wrong medication. But can you imagine if it was got the right one and it was just something that just shifted things, and I, just by taking a tablet every day, I just felt optimistic and much less anxious, and it was like a miracle. You know, I mean, I'm not taking anything. I'm doing it the good old courageous way, but sometimes it does cross my mind, you know, are you not being a bit stupid if there is something there that you can get a prescription and it gives you a fucking buzz every day? Anyway, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop at 29 minutes. Adios.